This conference will now be recorded.
Joey, man, it's been a few weeks. How
It's
come?
been
Go for it.
it's been a while. It's been a
I
while.
know. It's funny because the first thing that we said, the first 5 minutes of our first conversation was like, dude, let's make this a consistency podcast. And it's funny because we've been consistently inconsistent for the past maybe 3, 4 weeks or something like that.
It's been longer, I think. When was the last time
Really?
we uploaded? Yeah, it's been way longer than that.
But I have to say that life has been in between the podcast, right? So I think the first postponement was you having COVID, if I remember,
Yes.
or you were sick or something like that, and
Yes, I had
then
COVID.
yeah, and then I got fake COVID.
What happened again? You thought you had COVID, or were you
Yeah,
actually sick?
so look, it's my fault because so at the beginning of the pandemic we bought, by we I mean my partner and I, we bought a bunch of rat tests and we've been using them like sporadically. The last time I used one was like before a trip last year, just when they opened the borders. And like, to be honest, I didn't even check the test. Someone did it for me. Like my partner did it for me. So I was like, yeah, okay. So this time, like a few weeks ago, I was feeling a bit like my throat was a bit itchy,
Mm.
and I was like, surely like I'm coming down with something, right? And so I went and like to one of those rat tests, and I was, I was waiting for the result. And again, I preface I never paid too much attention to these results in the past, any type of like test like similar like this. And you see, like when you saw the result, it was just the C line, and I interpreted that as COVID. And silly me, I didn't read the booklet. I should
So you
have.
thought the C meant COVID?
Yes.
I mean, I've never taken one of those tests, but even I know, like, you need both lines, right?
Yeah. Well, I found out. Yeah, yeah. I was just. I mean, I didn't pay attention, I guess, and I should have read the booklet. So this was on a Monday, and I spent the whole week thinking that I had COVID. I was feeling sick. I was feeling like
Mm.
with flu symptoms. So I just powered through it. Like I didn't go out and as
Yeah.
you should, right? So when I was feeling better, it was like Thursday night or Friday. I forget exactly. And so I really wanted to go out and like socialize. And so I'm gonna take the test. And this time I was waiting. And while I was waiting, I decided just to like, fidget with the booklet, and then I saw the result. And, like, yeah, and I was like, face
uh,
palm, absolutely.
well, I mean, it's good that you isolated when you were sick anyway, because yeah, a lot of people don't do that. When they get sick and they find out it's not COVID, then they go out anyway because it's not COVID, but they're still like sniffling and coughing and stuff and spreading the flu and what have you. And that's partly why the flu cases are going up so much. COVID cases are going up as well because of the new
Hmm.
variant. Flu cases have been, yeah, incredibly high. After a lull last year, it's now higher than the same time in previous years, pre-COVID, the flu cases. So yeah, after I got better from COVID, I immediately got a flu shot just because I didn't want to get sick again. But now that you said that, I'm sort of feeling a bit scratchy in my throat because one of my colleagues, I hung out with him last week, and now he's got COVID, and now I'm scared I got COVID again. And the a lot of people say you get immunity after you get COVID, right? But with these new variants that are coming in, the the immunity period has dropped. Is going to drop significantly. So I think some of the medical experts said that what they thought was 12 weeks of immunity after getting COVID is now like 4 weeks, which is pretty insane. With the new variants, you could get sick like every month, and
I
you'd
do.
be
This is
out for
all
a
this
whole
COVID
week
situation.
every month.
All this COVID situation is quite stressful. Like just giving me anxiety. I see all these new cases all over the place, and it's like, no, man, we can't go back. Hopefully, we don't go back to all the all the lockdowns and like
I think we're
not only
beyond
like
that.
for sorry.
We're beyond lockdowns. Like we won't be going back to lockdowns. It's too late.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think yeah that I agree with you. Hopefully that's the case because like how things tend to change
Yeah.
without any yeah. And but anyway, so and also like I like the obviously people get impacted because potentially they cannot go to places, but businesses, right? Like it's a moment in the country that like they got really impacted by lockdowns and all of the restrictions and all the craziness happening over the past 2 years. So like I don't think we can afford doing anything similar in any shape or form.
Well, we can't afford we can't afford to go out as much as we used to because of all this inflation talk and interest rate talk. Yeah, I've not liked looking at my bank account these
Yeah,
last few weeks, and yeah, it's only going to get worse. I think. I don't know if you've been listening to the news, but inflation is expected to be much higher by the end of this year, um, and cost of living is going to increase, and so will interest rates, and unemployment is at around 3.5% right now. So that's a few months ago it was like 3.9, and now it's still going down even further. It's 3.5 now. And that just gives more impetus for the RBA to increase rates because full employment, low unemployment rate means more competition. There's in fact like almost enough vacancies as there are unemployed people. So between unemployed people and the number of open jobs, not that they'll fill it, they're almost equal. So everybody could technically be employed. The unemployment rate could technically be zero. Um, but with that statistic in general, yeah, that's going to put a lot of pressure on interest rates to go up, as well as inflation and, you know, rises in prices and stuff. So that those are the two main factors that the RBA has to as a sort of reason to increase rates, and they're both pretty out of control.
el mundo está
So
loco. The world is crazy, man.
yes, even more so. We I think we thought last year it couldn't get any crazier.
Yeah, my dude. And also Trump is gonna go for president again, so he's gonna get even crazier.
Oh yeah, we'll see what happens there. That's a whole nother
Yes, I
level
know.
of craziness.
For a completely whole new episode of our famous podcast. But dude, like, sorry, like I just wanted to take one step back, right? So like I wanted to talk a little bit about design, right? Just reflecting on my face palm experience with the COVID test, right? And
Yeah.
like I would say that I'm a fairly well educated man, and like I just lack of attention sometimes, and like I sometimes encounter myself in similar situations. Like I was kind of having again a facepalm moment because when I was in high school, I used to or when I was transitioning between high school and college type of age when I was started buying like my first things for the house and all this stuff, right? So, for example, when you buy a microwave or something like that, right? When you read the pamphlets, it's like do not throw in water, and it's like, man, like why? like sometimes they have these disclaimers that are like
Yeah,
obvious to anyone. It's like, why would I want to throw it in water, or or why would I want to put a pet in it or something like that, right? Like,
because someone's
yeah,
done it before, probably.
or someone has died of doing something like that, right? And yeah, but anyway, so design sometimes is not as like as obvious as you may think, and I was trying to feel myself feel better because like it should be obvious, right? C for COVID.
So what would T? It's like C and T, right? So what does T mean?
Yeah,
If C means
test.
COVID, what does T mean?
I don't know. I have an idea. I should have googled it. Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. That happens to everybody. I'm sure I've had some bonehead moment, but I can't
Both.
think of any right now.
Yeah,
That
for
that's
sure.
what I define that as. That's a boneheaded moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's you're sick, so you're probably, your mind wasn't probably in the right place anyway, and you're probably tired and stuff. And yeah, you're right. The design isn't the most user friendly.
That is very true, my friend. That is very true.
Um, did you have anything you want to talk about today? Because I have something I want to talk about.
Go for it, man. Shoot.
Something fun. Something that's not about politics. It's not about um, the craziness of the world, but it's a bit crazy.
Okay.
And
I'm ready for crazy.
for for our listeners at home, you might know that I'm really big into YouTube. I like watching YouTube. I have YouTube on all the time. And one of my favorite YouTube channels is Vsauce,
Okay.
which you would know about.
I
Um,
do.
I I think it's just all their videos are just sort of random, but the key link between all of them is that they sort of mess with your mind at the end, right? Pretty much all the
Yeah.
videos, they're just like, it's just a messy, sort of incomprehensible thing. So I want to talk about one of the incomprehensible videos um, that I watched or rewatched. And luckily, he's yeah,
Just quick parenthesis, just before you continue, just giving a little bit of context, right? So, in case someone hasn't checked Bezos, like please do so. And the guy, his name is Michael something, right? Like what's
Michael
his
Stevens.
Michael Stevens, right? So like he's been hosting this channel for the past easily 15 years. Like it's been
Yeah.
so long. Yeah. And it's fantastic because if you have listened to his stories long enough, like you can tell that the guy likes a good debate, and I think like he has background like from his high school days. He was in the debate group, so he loves doing the public speaking
Oh.
and all this stuff. Yeah. And so he goes into these, like, chooses a super random topic and goes on and on for 20 minutes non-stop, and it's quite fantastic because, as you mentioned before, like it's a bit of a brain fuck, and like it goes starts the topic here and then takes you like to really like different places, right? And so sometimes it's talking about like why the alphabet is organized in this manner, right? Which is like why would he talk about that? And then he comes out with a way to reflect on why society needs to like be better with the ecosystem, right? And it's all connected. So he always like has a very clear way to connect really like philosophical things with really random topics, which is something that is very fascinating. And again, to the recommendation, you should check it out if you haven't checked, or anyone listening to this fantastic conversation. Anyway, so close parenthesis, please continue. So you rewatched something.
Yes, and I was gonna say as well that he's still making videos, which is awesome. And he's made one, I think, a few days ago, which everybody should go watch because they're just as good as the ones, that he's made 5, 10 years ago. They're pretty much like timeless videos, right? They're not like about current events or anything. It's all like sort of timeless sort of stuff. You can go back and watch a 10-year-old video of theirs and it'll still be awesome. And he still gets millions and millions of views um, with his old videos and his new videos, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But one video I watched, which I still remember having this conversation with you now, is the one on super tasks.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
I think so. I recall this, but it's not very fresh in my mind. Please refresh my memory.
I will fuck your brain around super tasks.
I'm ready for
So
you to fuck my
and I'll link it in the video notes because I can't do it justice in a short podcast. But I'll explain what sort of he goes through when he talks about super tasks. So what is a super task? A super task is um, something that is done in a finite amount of time, but there are infinite steps in the task. So what
Okay.
do I
One
mean by
example.
this? So imagine you have a cake, and this is the first example in the video. Imagine you have a cake um, that you can cut in half, right? So you just cut it in half lengthways, and you take one of the halves and you cut it in half again,
Yeah.
right? And then you take that half that you just cut, take one of them, and then cut it in half again, and you keep
Yeah.
doing that. And every time you cut one of the pieces in half, you take that cut piece and stack it on top of your bigger piece
Hmm.
so that it stacks. You stack your cake into this sort of, smaller and smaller sort of tower of cake.
Yes.
And each time you cut it, you add that little piece back to the top of the cake. So the the amount of cake stays the same, right?
But it
There's
grows.
always that same
It
cake.
grows an infinite amount because you can keep. In theory, you could keep like cutting half and half and half and half. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So the surface area of the cake keeps increasing, and if you do it infinite amount of times, then the surface area of the cake is infinity, whereas the volume of the cake still remains the same, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty weird, right? But like the whole thing about that is like it will take an infinite amount of time to even build the cake. So like that thing wouldn't exist even if you could cut something like that an infinite amount of times. But imagine now that we accelerate the time it takes to cut a cake. So every time we cut the cake in half, let's do it twice as fast as we did it before.
Okay.
So let's say we cut the cake once in half, the whole cake, and then we wait 1 minute. And then after a minute, we cut it again. And then after 30 seconds, we cut it again. And then after 15 seconds, we cut it again, and so on and so forth, halving the number of, uh, halving the amount of time it takes to cut each of the slices in half. Then at the end of that, the whole task will complete in 2 minutes, right?
Yeah. In theory.
In theory. But the fact is, there's an infinite amount of steps in the task because there's an infinite amount of cuts that we can make to the cake. So the paradox there is something that can take 2 minutes has an infinite amount of steps and
Okay.
produces a cake that's like infinitely tall. So that's the mind fuckery of a super task.
I love it. It's a fantastic one. Actually, like so, there is one that I remember, and I think many months ago you and I talked about this one in particular as well. One memorable one, also from this guy Bezos is the size of 52 factorial, which is the number of shuffles that you can have in a deck of cards, right? And
Yeah, like the number of combinations that a
yeah,
deck of cards can give you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So look, just retrieving this information from my mind because I watched this many years ago. But it's basically like similar to the impossible task, the infinite task that you're mentioning, right? So they first do the calculation 52 factorial, which is a number like mm, our brains cannot comprehend. It's so big.
Yeah.
Um, One of those numbers that is like larger than the number of atoms in the universe, like, which is a massive number. Um, and basically, like the actually, like, why don't we play that little segment?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So look, check this out from here. Okay, so this is the channel. This house, check it out. And this is the explanation, the explanation for 52 factorial, how big the number is.
A timer to count down 52 factorial seconds. While the timer runs,
Thank you, YouTube.
haven't
Definitely
heard
got
the
to
show.
edit that out.
Does it go on time? Well, it's something we've told a
Yeah, who is
lot
this
of
guy? Okay,
Unless we get sponsored by 4 and 20.
yeah, okay.
the most mind-boggling visualizations of the size of 52 factorial. Imagine setting a timer to count down 52 factorial seconds. While the timer runs, stand on the equator and wait 1 billion years. After a billion years have passed, take a single step forward, and then wait another billion years before taking a second step, and so on. Once you have walked all the way around the Earth, take a single drop of water out of the Pacific Ocean, that's 5/100ths of a milliliter, and set it aside. Now continue walking at a rate of one step every billion years, removing one drop after every journey around the entire Earth, and by the time the Pacific Ocean is completely empty, put a single sheet of paper on the ground. Refill the ocean and keep
You
going.
already lost track of
Earth,
like how
which is the sun,
huge that is by waiting a billion years. A billion years is already like unthinkable amount of time, and then you have to walk. Yeah, like the second part, walking around the Earth, which takes, I don't know, let's say a million steps. So that's like a million times a billion, and then it's like a million times a billion times another billion or whatever.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
insanely
unfathomably large.
big, right? So and it's incredible that just like something that is this size, and for example, like a game of poker or blackjack, like how many people have played blackjack in history? I don't know,
Yeah.
like probably billions of times, right? Like, and there is like mathematically like no possibility for like the same deck to be organized twice, and it never will because
Yeah.
exactly 52 factorial, which is like quite disturbing for the mind.
Yes. I that reminds me of another thing, um, which is as mind fucky as that, but even more mind fucky. There's this thing called the Library of Babel or Babel,
Okay.
um, and so consider that there is a library that's like infinitely large, right?
Okay.
And in that library is every combination of words, and any length of sentences. Basically, every combination of every letter in the alphabet, which is a ridiculous amount, right? And then you can also reorder them as well. So that would essentially give you, if you have every combination of every word that's ever existed and will exist, then you basically have every single conversation that you and I would say, every conversation that anybody in the world would be saying to each other, every text that's ever been written, every story that's been told, everything would be in this library, right? Because it contains every single combination of words. So the whole in this library, the whole um, every work of Shakespeare would be in this library, and everything that Shakespeare also, thought in his mind and never bothered to write down, that would also be in this library. The
And everything that
conversation we're having
will never be
now,
said in the future, it's in the library. Like everything is in the library.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's sort of like how a thousand, like an infinite number of um, monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters, they would
yeah.
eventually write the greatest novel ever. Well, that's in this library because it's an infinite combination.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And so look, I think I know what you're talking about, and there's a website with this, right?
There is,
Basically, yeah. So
there is.
and
Do
and
you
in
want,
this website you can type anything that you can imagine, and even this conversation, if literally we download a script of everything that we're saying, not that this is scripted, obviously. Like this conversation is also written in
yeah,
the in the
everything that will come out of your mouth has already been recorded in this library. So I got it up. Can I share my screen?
I think you can.
Can you see that?
Yeah,
So yeah, if we search, what do we want to search about?
exactly that.
Well, I mean that's a bit obvious. Let's search about what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. What did we say in the beginning? Welcome the consistency podcast. It's in two locations.
The consistency podcast. Yeah, but like
Welcome to the consistency podcast. There it is. It's in the
yeah.
library.
So I mean that's too constrained, right? So it's just 5 words in a massive library.
Well, do you want to
But
say something to search?
yeah, in theory, just type that. In theory, you could type a longer sentence, including my name, which is not that popular, which is David Contreras Rojas, and then you can add all of my other last names that I know that are super obscure. So okay.
Anything else you want to say?
Say Joey.
Oh no! Oh no! I pressed the wrong button. Well, that's another. Uh,
Another facepalm
that's
moment.
another
Okay, now,
bonehead. That's
yeah.
another bonehead. That is another. Now to click search. For real this time. Oh, it can be with random characters or words. There it is. It's in the library. It already knew what I was going to say. It already knew we were having this conversation.
I wonder how they did this, man. It's so fantastic.
It's a algorithm. So sort of like generates it based on the algorithm.
And is it something that it's already been like pushed online, or is just like just there for you to retrieve somehow? And
Yeah, I mean it's retrieved from the algorithm. It's not like it's been in
and
reality. It's not like it's been recorded somewhere. It's not stored somewhere. But it's just an
how
algorithm when
how
you
big
like
it is? So could you
how big
download this stuff?
could I learn this or
No,
download it, you mean?
download.
Um I'm sure you could, but why would you? Well, technically it's an infinite thing. So you couldn't download everything, right?
Yeah, this is super cool, man. I love it.
That's
The
another
library
yeah, it's so weird to think about that. Cuz like every sort of truth in the universe is in this library. All you have to do is search it and it could be, you know, what is the meaning of life? That's in there.
it
Who
could be.
who killed JFK is also in here.
And everything that the guy said before killing
Yeah,
FJ is already as well.
exactly. What he had for lunch, if he even was a
Yeah.
he, is in
I
the
love
library.
these internet Easter eggs, man. I think we should look for more of those and bring them to the
Yeah,
consistency podcast in the future. There's
yeah. Let's
definitely
do it.
lots of them. Yeah, I'll research some of them. Mhm. Shall we call it for today? We've been talking for the past hour.
Oh, we have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Okay. We can call it. Our podcasts have been getting a bit long.
Yes.
The many millions of viewers, a lot of their feedback has been it's been quite long. Although other people have said they just sort of listen to podcasts in the background and doesn't matter if it's long or short. And it's actually better that it is long, so you can just sort of keep it on and listen to it.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I like. I guess it depends, right? It depends on, for example, so the best example of long-term podcast is Joe Rogan. The guy sits up to 3 hours or something, and and he's a great conversationalist. He has
Mm.
very interesting. Most of the cases, he has really good speakers or like people who are super well known and like naturally like very interesting in general. I don't know. I don't. So I tend not to listen too much when he brings all of the fighters and some of the like his comic friends, like great and all that. But like I guess like sometimes I don't find that very like interesting to in my own opinion, right? But yeah, like so whenever he brings like people who do like documentaries or like musicians, all that stuff, I love, man, and I consume that stuff really really well. So that type of thing is really interesting. But like sometimes you have the shorter ones that they just go for 9 like to 10 minutes, and I just bite-sized piece of information, and that's interesting. Just a good way to get through your
Mm.
day.
Well, let's experiment. Let's experiment with different things, and yeah, we'll see what sticks.
Excellent. Okay, my friend. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you to anyone who listened to the whole conversation today. And we'll see you, hopefully not in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We have to keep it closer because I mean I love talking to you, Mr. Joyman, and I'm looking forward to listening to more Easter eggs, internet Easter eggs, and any other interesting things that we have discovered.
Yes, yes, and we'll definitely have some more videos coming out soon. So no need to wait, dear listener. We'll be back with more videos coming soon.
Excellent. Ciao.
Bye bye.